Greetings from California, USA. I want to say hello to all my friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of my friends all over the world. My name is Dr. Emily Letran. I'm a practicing dentist for almost 3 decades in Southern California. I am one of the regions of the Global Summits Institute and the dean of the Doctorate of Business Administration program that we're launching this June. This morning, I have the absolute honor to interview one of the greatest person in dentistry and one of my good friends, Mr. Steve Parker. Steve Parker is the president and CEO of the Profitable Dentist magazine, and he's the editor-in-chief. He has brought renewed energy to continuing the work of the founder, Dr. Woody Oakes, and I have been following Dr. Woody Oakes back in 1994 or so when I first finished my residency at the dental school. You know, the Profitable Dentist magazine and the conferences and the CE courses over the past 30 years have helped tens of thousands of dentists become better practice owners, and it has awarded millions of CEs over the year. Nearly every notable lecturer, industry leader, and dental education expert has been at one of the conference and has been published in the Profitable Dentist magazine. Building on Dr. Woody Oakes' vision, Steve Parker has dramatically expanded the Profitable Dentist network of resources, and it allows practices to help dentists who are running the practices and the industry experts and key opinion leaders to collaborate and share ideas, expertise, and best practices. And Mr. Steve Parker speaks internationally, contributes to industry journals, and he is really a thought leader and a great consultant, and always help our profession elevate itself. And I've been very honored to have Steve come and speak at 2 of my events, Action to Win. And when I co-wrote my book with one of my best buddy, Dr. Steve Martner, the book is called No Nonsense Dentistry for Dental Peeps. Well, guess who wrote the foreword? It was Dr. Steve Parker. Because as far as I'm concerned, Steve is a doctor, right? He's a doctor because he has that mindset of the doctor who owns a practice. So good morning and welcome, Steve.
Good morning, Dr. Letran. Wow, thank you. I'm blushing. If we could end now, it would be perfect. Everybody would think I'm really smart.
No, I think it's not about being smart. I think it's about being wise and knowing exactly what is going on, like keeping a pulse, right, on the industry. And the only way you could do that is by surrounding yourself with knowledgeable people, with influencers, with people who actually care. So they're going to give you the right information, right? So you can make the right decision. You've been whether you know it or not, right? You've been my sounding boards. I've called Steve up and said, Steve, this is going on. What do you think? I'm frustrated. And Steve has told me that he is a consultant for many large DSOs. He cannot tell me who they are because then he has to kill me. So that's why we kind of we leave it alone. So tell us, how did you get into this industry? I know we'll chat about your wife Paula in a moment, but you yourself, how did you get into the healthcare industry?
Oh, Paula's way more interesting than me. It's an interesting road. I am a serial entrepreneur. That's what I do. I started my first companies. I bought my first company in college and understood buying and selling companies, how they're valued, what their purpose is. There are a lot of fundamentals in building a business, but there's also an element of looseness that we're going to talk about here shortly in my presentation that doesn't lend well to a dental education. So it's what's helped me is seeing how different businesses grow and shrink and die and morph and change. So I sold a company in about 2000 that was a power infrastructure company. What that means is all the cell towers and cell phones you have, and large electric vehicles. That was my company. And I did it for 20 years, sold it, did very well, decided to do my next thing. And I had a friend, college friend, whose wife was a dentist. And we were at lunch, and I said, I need to pick my next thing that I'm going to do. And he said, oh, you need to open a dental lab. And I said, first of all, what's a dental lab? And he explained it. And he said, all I know is Sarah hates them all. They're really expensive. And if anybody can figure this mess out, you can. So I got into dentistry by buying dental labs. It took me about 2 or 3 years to realize it was a little bit like herding cats. Every lab owner. So I would go in and say, gee, here's a lab owner who's struggling, and they have a really good business model. They're a great technician, but they stink at the business. And so what a great idea to bring them together, let them do their own thing, and let me run the business piece of it. Well, very much like dentistry that I learned in later years as it evolved, it's everybody has their opinion on the way they, they're fine getting together as long as we all do it my way.
Yes. Right.
And now when you have 5 or 6 people who are saying, fantastic, we're all together, but we're doing it my way, it takes a while to work that out. So that was the early 2000s, about the same time that DSOs started to come along, and the same thing applied. So I got into the dental business part of it, the dental practice part of it, by a number of dentists who owed me a lot of money. I don't know if anybody on this, anybody in our audience tonight is familiar or comfortable with this, but there are a lot of dentists who get way behind in their lab bill. I could never understand that. And one month they would pay the lab bill, then the next month they would pay the rent, and then they would come back because the lab guy was, barking at them, and then they would go back and pay the landlord is yelling at them. And so I got under the hood, and I found there were very simple things to change that problem. And they couldn't pay their staff, and they were going bankrupt. And it was just I just couldn't understand it. So I became a consultant, looked under the hood. It's when I met Dr. Woody Oakes. We happened to live in the same town, and I knew he did something bigger than just practicing dentistry. So we got together. I looked under the hood. I took a business approach. We had some great success with some practices, and then realized that this is a much bigger thing. So there were people who their business was really building businesses. Dr. Rick Workman, who built Heartland, literally got the idea sitting in one of our meetings in Destin, Florida. And he looked around the room, and I don't know if you know Dr. Workman, but dentistry was a backup career for him. And he was a farmer, and his father said, farming's tough, you need a backup career. So he picked dentistry. And he was sitting in one of our conferences with 1,200 people. I think Tony Robbins was speaking that year. And he was looking around, and he said, every one of these dentists in this room hate running their practice, but they love being a dentist. So he sat down with somebody, and he'll tell you this story. He said, I just said, let me run it for you. Let me run the business part. You just do the dentistry, and I'll take a little percentage every year. And that's literally how Heartland grew. And because he liked the business side, he just happened to be a dentist. He didn't like the dentistry part because, he wanted to be a farmer.
He's not a dentist, right?
So out of that whole experience, I started buying pieces of practices. Instead of paying me, I would say, well, how about this? We'll just become partners. I got to understand how the practice part worked. And, I've spoken many times before how the mindset of a dentist works. And sometimes the small little things that stand between having a wonderful, financially rewarding, gratifying clinically career and laying awake every night full of anxiety and struggle, and eventually go bankrupt and get divorced and, worse things. So I got into it that way, but I got into dentistry as a business person, and I still own some dental labs, still own several businesses. Everything I do is in dentistry now, everything, other than real estate. And a lot of that's dental real estate. And I tried not to make myself out front early on, but as it grew, I found that I could help in messaging. I really like speaking at your events. Your events, one of the things that I got is they're very real. The people who speak are approachable. Normally I go in, speak, and leave. And at your events, we just hang around and people talk. And I've had the most interesting conversations with people who still stay in touch. They'll email me and they'll text me and they say, oh my gosh, I did what you said. And what I said was a teeny little thing you could do tomorrow morning. And then my production's up $40,000 a month. And I think, well, you could do that, anytime you want. They just needed some motivation. So I put myself out front for that reason, is that maybe it helps a practice owner or two struggling realize this is not a giant thing. You don't need to go to school and get an MBA for this. You need to do, if you're a practice owner, you need to do a lot of little things. And, so it's worked very well for me. We've got a tremendous reach and tremendous audience. And my email is full every morning with doctors who reach out and say, hey, how can you help me in my practice? And I hope we do.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing that, because sometimes, and we talk about this, and I know you're going to talk about this in a little bit, it's all about the mindset and also being in the right place at the right time, right? I would think for Dr. Workman, for him to be there at that event, at that time and realize this is an opportunity. The people in this room want what I can do. And and also to act on it, right? And that takes the support, that takes the knowledge, which is why we launching that program, because that the DBA program is all about education. It's not, we don't need to give you the hype, and I would imagine, and I'm pretty sure the program is going to be very similar to my event, right? We're just going to talk real stuff. We're not going to talk about theories and things like that. So I love to see you grow, and it was such an honor at one of the events. I think it was in Dallas, where you handed me the CD, right, of the profitable dentist interview that you did with me. Because those are the CDs I used to buy, right? when I was subscribing to Dr. Woody Oak. So I think you just took that, you carried it, made such a footprint on the industry, and thank you so much for that. Now I'm going to just steer a little bit and talk about some of the things that you're doing next, and one of them has to do with Paula, and you're going to give me a little bit insight about Paula, because she works with so many companies. She's so knowledgeable, and she's such a sweet, great person. I got to meet her several times.
Well, thank you.
You spoke at my event.
I'm very, very lucky.
Yes.
So my wife was it's been an interesting 2 years. My wife was a very high up corporate employee for a very large Fortune 100 healthcare company. I mean, she made big things happen. She created programs that, if I mentioned them, you would recognize, and you would say, holy cow, she spent hundreds of millions of somebody's dollars to do that. And and this is very entrepreneurial. So I tell this story for a reason. She, when COVID came along, they had already started to transition to work from home. They call it agile in the corporate world. So as long as you have a laptop and internet connection, and the work you do is developing, building plans, you do meetings like this with people all over the country or world, and there are project management tools and all these things that corporations have. They started to do that. And then 2 days a week you could do that. And the other 3 days a week you went to the office, the big corporate tower. And then COVID came along and you didn't go to the corporate tower. You stayed in your home office. And, we have a nice home and nice office, and it's fantastic, but it's not work. It's not leaving. So Paula would, I would get home, or I would call and say, I'm on the way home. And she would say, oh my gosh, I'm going to take a shower. She would get up, walk 10 feet down the hall, and spend her day working really hard, making big things happen. Right. And then at 5:30, get up. And I don't know the emotional impact or the mental impact of it, but for a lot of people, it was just, well, if I'm doing this, why don't I do something else? Do it for me. So she reached a point where it was just a challenge for her to do that. And one day I said, we don't need you to work. She likes to work. And I said, if you want to quit, just quit, but you shouldn't be stressed every day when you go to work. You shouldn't be anxious every meeting you have because you can't see people face to face. You can't interact. And the things she did were, again, very development things. They're better done around a table at a dinner.
Right.
They're better done
Right.
face to face. Again, she's
Right.
building idea things that, it's not just going through rote motions, it's building things, and they're better done face to face. So she had started to work out of some offices we had. We have, part of a building. And I said, come on down. We've got plenty of empty space. People are home. So one day she came to the door and she said, oh, I just sat through this terrible meeting and it's such a challenge. I said, if you want to quit, just quit. And I went to a meeting and I came back and she said, okay, I quit. So she's part of the Great Resignation. She started it, in fact, I think. She did this early last year. And it's more of a mental thing. So she's always traveled with me and worked with me. And again, because she worked agile, she could be with me on the road. She loves travel and she loves to organize travel. And we would be with a lot of groups. In fact, we would come to like your event and we would meet up with 5 or 6 couples who live wherever you're having the event.
Right.
And Paula would organize all that. And one day somebody said, you should do this for a living. And she said, okay. So she started this in the last 30 days. She started a company called Dentiva Travel. And what it does is just dentist groups. So she does the travel, the experience for masterminds, and practice groups. Our next product is sort of practice groups. So if you're we've got a practice that has, I think, 89 people, and they want to take them to Mexico for all inclusive, like a reward trip for the entire staff, hygienists, assistants. So she will put those together because she literally loves doing it. She'll sit up for till 2 or 3 in the morning organizing these things. And out of that came this amazing business that started to grow. As a little aside, we live in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, and the Bourbon Trail is right across the river. So we got so many requests from people that said, hey, where would I go if we went on the Bourbon Trail? And if we're going to come visit the Bourbon Trail, how would we do that? It's this beautiful Kentucky thing you do. And so Paula put a couple together and people said, will you put a trip together for us? So it's become this amazing business that if she had not just gotten tired of it and said, here's what I like to do, and then done it. Now she relies on me for the business part of it, the legal part, getting the corporation set up, bank accounts, all that. It made her anxious to just let that go. And I said, here's the deal. We can rely on each other. I'll do that because that's where I live. And you do what you do because that's where you live, and it works well together. And that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, is how to balance those mindsets and focus on what you do well and how to manage the stuff you don't do well. If you have a spouse that does it, great. If you have a brother-in-law that does it, awesome. But if you have to do both yourself, it's very difficult as a dentist to do it yourself.
So now she knows exactly how a dentist feels. Right?
Yes.
You just substitute dentistry with the travel.
We have had that conversation. You don't know how many times she'll say, wait a minute, that's what you talked about, so-and-so or here or there.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
So it's becoming very real.
That's good. That's good. And I want to congratulate both of you for that. Congratulate her. Remind me to introduce her. There's a Facebook group of dentists that all they talk about is travel. They just say,
okay, good.
I'm going here. What do you recommend? And several people would say, I recommend you do this and eat here and stay here. I can put her in that group.
That's what she puts a package together, and it is. It's been. They've all been really a lot of fun and worked out really well. And again, it's a real business because she's a very serious person. When she, that's where she grew up. That's what corporate world does for you. But she brings that kind of high level talent to, a good, small, comfortable business. I love that. Dentistry is one of the last mom and pop industries in America. And 84% of practice owners dentists own their practice. There's no other industry close to that. So it's one of the reasons that I love dentistry is it's very comfortable and familiar, and the players in it are approachable players.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to let you share your expertise because I know you have a wonderful presentation to share with us, and you're going to talk about the the mindset of a dentist, where it should be, and it's not about cement and composite. I tell you that. So go ahead and please
Right.
share.
Yeah, in fact, I would tell anybody who's listening, if you're thinking this, changing over to that really awesome new composite the rep told you about, it's not going to double your production. And that is a dentist mindset. You cannot believe how many times I've heard things like that. Somebody's losing money and I say, what are you going to do? And they say, well, I'm thinking about this new composite or some little bitty thing that has nothing to do with it. So I appreciate the setup. And if you're ready, we'll just jump right in.
Yes, please.
I
Go
will.
ahead and just share the screen.
I'm going to share a screen. Here we go. And get this started. And I'm going to sort of lead in by saying, there's an odd thing about dentistry. Something happened on the way in the evolution of the dental business. And fundamentally, that is that somehow being an entrepreneur and being a dentist became the same thing. And even in the language, one of the things that I do when I speak is try and heighten the awareness of, okay, are you talking to me as a dentist or are you talking to me as a practice owner? Because they're two extremely different things. And I'm going to show you here in a little bit how that's scientific. They are scientifically different things. You've been trained for the wrong thing. Dental school gave you a knife to take to a gunfight. And when you show up, you're ill prepared. But dentistry is one of the last mom and pop industries, mostly the United States. I see we have a lot of people that are from around the world, but I'm going to speak mostly about the United States, somewhat North America. I know that a lot of countries have sort of government funded or sponsored healthcare, and attracting patients is just being a dentist. In the United States, you don't have that. You've got to find your own patients. You got to make your own profit. And if you stink at it, you go bankrupt and do something else. So we'll talk mostly about the United States and how it functions here. Again, somehow on the way, this became an entrepreneur business, not a dental business. Now, it worked well for generations. You could be a dentist, you could hang something on the side of your building, and the population would come see you, and you could live a pretty good life as a dentist, and the practice owner could be a second thought. Today, the pressure of insurance, the pressure of dental groups, the pressures of really just dental school education, all, and I'm going to pop these through here as we go, all pressure and impact on you as a practice owner, less as a dentist. So as Dr. Letran said, Steve Parker, owner of the Profitable Dentist magazine, we reach most dentists in the United States. If you've been practicing in the last 30 years, you've probably gotten our magazine, certainly got mail. We've mailed hundreds of thousands of DVDs and CDs with interviews and videos. And I've owned a dental practice as a non-dentist. So I can speak directly to what a non-dentist does owning a dental practice. Today, I want to make sure that we discuss three things. One is going to be the explosion of non-dentist owned practices and the impact that they're going to have and the unfair advantage that they have being a non-dentist owned dental practice. And it's not what you think. I want to understand the role science plays in creating your dentist mindset and the disadvantage that, as I said, dental school gave you coming out to be a practice owner. Did a great job of dentistry. We'll talk about how we can prove that. And they didn't do a very good job of teaching you how to be a practice owner. And then at the very end, I'm going to give you 5 things you can do. You can start today that will help you refocus and develop your practice owner mindset that are teeny tiny little things. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to go out and do anything. You don't have to do push-ups or do some exercises. You can just start doing them right now. And every tool you have is in your hand. So I want to start out by talking about the non-dentist ownership dilemma. The majority of practices in America, fastest growing, are owned by non-dentists. And groups, and there are some reasons for that we'll cover, groups are producing 10 times the profitability for their owners. So if you were in a group, even if it's your group or if it's in a large DSO, they're producing 10 times the percentage of profitability, not dollars. They're producing a cajillion times more dollars, but 10 times the percentage. So they're keeping 10 times out of every dollar what you do as a sole practitioner. Valuations are 15 times earnings, EBITDA, versus 2.5. That means when you go to sell your practice, and people ask me what their practice is worth, and I always give them an A/B answer. A, it's worth what somebody will pay you for it, and B, they'll pay you what they can borrow from a bank 95% of the time. So the bank will finance a group quicker, and there are literally there are certainly billions of dollars of private equity money available right now to buy groups. There is almost no money available to buy small solo practices. It is a challenge to get funding. And it's because of the valuation model. What is that practice worth if I buy it and put it in my group? Not very much. What is it worth if I sell it to an associate, sort of the typical model, bring in an associate 5 years before you want to retire, sell it to them, walk away? That model is broken. That model is crushed. It still happens, but very, very, very little. So I'm going to tell you some ways that you can change that and fix that and not get hurt doing it. And then the last thing is protectionism does not work. Literally every single lawsuit that's been filed in the United States by dental groups and typically state organizations against the concept of the corporate practice of dentistry. And in fact, the corporate practice of dentistry, a law about that, or a lawsuit about that, literally created the concept of DSOs. So the group that lost said, great, now we know where the boundaries are. We know where the guardrails are. So we're going to create this umbrella organization called a DSO, and the losing the lawsuit helped them define what a DSO was. So the next state that sued, that was Colorado. The next state that sued just relied on Colorado and said, well, here's Colorado. So this is where a boundary is between the clinical practice of dentistry and the business of dentistry. And that literally is what created the DSO. So lawsuits, while you win, these people aren't going to wrap up and say, hey, we built a $700 million practice. We're just going to give up because we lost the lawsuit. They're going to adapt so they don't lose next time. And then every other large group is going to look at them. Literally every state organization has lost every filing that they had, including Smile Direct. Smile Direct just lost a big lawsuit about needing an orthodontist to be present to do orthodontics. And Smile Direct said, awesome. How can we do it through teledentistry? And the judge said, sure. So now they won, they can still do it through teledentistry, but the orthodontist who wanted these patients coming to their practice still lost. So there's no winning in protectionism. I want you to meet a couple people really quick. One is Emmett Scott. I know Emmett very well. Emmett is 43 years old. I don't know if you can see behind here. He built his first practice in 2012. He was an accountant for a dentist. And he sat down similar to what I did and said, hey, I don't understand how you're losing money. And the dentist said, I don't know. I'm a great dentist. I see patients. I take a lot of hours of CE every year. And I barely make ends meet. And sometimes I struggle to meet payroll and I have to borrow from myself. And Emmett said, I don't understand that. How about we partner up? They did that for 1 year. And Emmett said, the answer is you at least need a second dentist. You've met your break even. Now a second dentist, since you have the space and the same lights are on and the same materials and the same staff, every dollar we produce from that second dentist is now free money. There are no costs associated with it other than supplies and a little bit of staff time. So they did that. They did 2 dentists. Now they have 38 offices and the practice is worth $50 million. And they formed that in 2012. So in 10 years, this is the size they've become. Meet David. David is around in my area, and that's one of the reasons that I put him on here. David is 31 years old. He was an average student at a little college in Indiana. He was a former Henry Schein rep who just started looking at, I think he was an accounting major. He started looking at these practices that he went into for Henry Schein and said, there's no reason they shouldn't be making money. So he started his company in 2018. He now has 18 offices and a valuation of about $20 million. He's 31. He learned all this from being a Henry Schein rep and looking at your practices. Why are these guys important? Number one, they are competition for your patients, and that puts downward pressure on fees. They're not the cheapest necessarily, but they can afford to be if they need to be. They're competition for your staff. They can pay more than you can pay to keep staff. They also do a lot of HR work. They take, as I was talking about Paula's, the business she's growing into, they'll take dentists and their teams on trips to Cancun or trips to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail or trips to where, things that staff says. In fact, I know a practice right now that had just rolled out a trip to Mexico at the end of the year for about 120 of their employees. In a time when it's tough finding staff, nobody's leaving before December for these people. So when there's pressure for $1 or $2 an hour to come work for me, they factor in this amazing all-inclusive trip to Mexico. It has nothing to do with the dentistry. It has to do with what they can do that you can't. Competition for associates, who would be the person buying your practice 5 or 10 years from now when you leave. They can pay more. They can take the headaches of ownership off the table, and they can pay, on average right now, groups are paying twice the payroll pay that groups pay twice the pay that a sole practitioner does. They can just do that, and they can factor it in. They need somebody to produce, and they're going to do what they can to keep this person. They need somebody who produces and makes patients happy, and they're going to reward that person. Somebody who comes in, can't produce, and has a lot of patient complaints, they'll move them on. Unfortunately, those are the people who become your associates. And we could talk about that. Somebody who is bounced out of 3 DSOs is not a good person to be your associate. Downward pressure on practice values. Practice values are now down to an average of 2 to 2.5 times earnings. It's about 250 grand. And I don't know many people who've practiced for 40 years who can sell their practice and live on 250 grand. But that's about where the average numbers are in the United States for sole practices. 96% of dentists cannot retire and maintain their lifestyles at age 65. That's from the ADA, Health Policy Institute. You work for a DSO, you're part of an ESOP, you're part of profit sharing, your name is on the door of the practice. There's a lot of great things for somebody coming out of dental school to say, this is where I want to go. More importantly, and I want to wrap this up at the end, is what you can do as practice owners to help make a career as a sole practitioner or as a small group practitioner more advantageous and valuable and appealing to a young dentist coming out of dental school. It is hard to compete with the big groups, and they only want the best people, and they're getting them. The average retirement age for dentists went from 68 to 70 over a 9-year period. It is now dropping. One of the reasons it's dropping is dentists are retiring younger. They've been in a group for 10 years now, and they're leaving with $4 or $5 million in retirement, and they're retiring early. Some of them are retiring early and starting their own practice. So the dynamics and the flow are changing dramatically just because of groups and DSOs. Most important thing I want to communicate, and I do this every day, is that bankruptcy, divorce, and suicide are dramatically higher in the dental profession. Dentistry is one of the top 5 now. There is very rarely that when I speak, like at Dr. Letran's events, where I don't say, does somebody here know anybody in your dental school class that's committed suicide, that every hand doesn't go up. That is terrible. I'm here to tell you, it's not the dentistry. That is not the problem. More CE on an implant, on how to do implants, is not going to take that anxiety and stress and away from you, from people who are contemplating suicide. I bet I could name 20 dentists I know who have committed suicide. My own dentist committed suicide 15 years ago, and I never understood why. It is not the dentistry, and we're going to talk about that. So why is this happening? And some of these are a little tongue-in-cheek, because these are the things that I'll do when I speak. Are non-dentists just smarter? Maybe that's it. Maybe they're just smarter. Absolutely, it's not it. Are they better educated? Definitely not. You went to dental school, for crying out loud. Did they go to more courses and have more CE hours than you? No. Are they better at certain dental procedures? Are they better at placing implants than you are? Absolutely not. Do they have a bunch of high-tech equipment and gadgets? Did they go out and buy a new $100,000 machine that won't produce one more dollar of revenue or drop one more dollar of cost? Your profit stays exactly the same, except for the money you're now paying for this $100,000 gadget that the sales rep talked you into. And we're going to talk about how you can break that bad habit here in just a minute. Did they just scam billions of dollars out of their patients with shoddy dentistry because all they care about is money? I hear this every day. And my response is, it is hard to build a 200 million or $1 billion corporation by mistreating your customers every day, especially in this day and age of cell phones and being able to post reviews. That's the #1 reason that patients pick a dentist, is the reviews that nowadays. 46% pick their dentist strictly on reviews, and it goes down from there. You can't mistreat your customers and survive in this world. So the idea that they're mistreating patients and doing terrible dentistry, you can fight that. And we're going to talk about mindset here in a little bit, or you can stop and look and see what they're doing that makes that better. Here's the good news. There are literally, believe it or not, 2 scientific factors that lead to all of this. And we're going to discuss them right now. One is that non-dentist owners literally think differently. They are wired differently. And not just in education, but how education has taught them to look at their business and the world. First of all, we're going to talk about left brain, right brain. Left brain is analytical, numbers, language, reasoning, logic, science, and math. It is your dentist mindset. And we're going to call it that. We're going to call it your dentist mindset. It's left brain. It's very black and white. Dentists think like managers. They manage what's in front of them and towards a particular goal. Now, ironically, if you work for a large DSO and you have an office or more than one office, that works. Believe it or not, that left brain behavior, managing treatment, managing the clinical part of it, works very well. You were trained for this. Ironically, dental schools have trained dentists to be good employees and managers, but expected them to be entrepreneurs for the last 70 years. On the other hand, right brain is emotional, imagination, expression, art, awareness, intuition, and creativity. Your owner mindset, and that's what we're going to call this, thinks a little bit more fluid. When COVID came along, I had dentist friends call and say, what should I be doing now? Well, I don't know. Your practice is as unique as you. There are probably 100 possible things you need to be doing, but you need to figure out the ones that are most important for your practice. So if if you have a nest egg of a couple $1 million saved up, don't worry about staying alive. You're going to stay alive. Worry about surviving, breaking even, and take this opportunity to build some things, build in some systems you weren't able to do before. I did a series called Coming Back Stronger, and Dr. Emily was on it. And what I asked people is, what should practice owners be doing today, meaning early 2020, but when they can't see patients, we're all locked down. What should they be doing today to lay some groundwork and foundation and prepare themselves for when we get to come back and see patients again? And the smart ones started, they went paperless because they were going to anyway. They got started in March of 2020 instead of when they were forced to do it in the middle of or end of 2021. They did things that were very fluid. There's no playbook. Now, when you face a procedure, the first thing you do is go to the playbook, you go to a colleague and you say, hey, how do you do this? And they'll text you over a 21-step process about how to do that treatment. Business doesn't work that way. There are curveballs constantly. There are economic recessions. There are, back during the AIDS crisis, dentistry dropped almost 36% as an industry because people were afraid to go to the dentist. Dental school didn't teach you how to deal with that. A lot of dentists went bankrupt during that time. The pandemic comes along. There's no playbook for dealing with how a complete shutdown in patients. But if you're a practice owner and you using your practice owner mindset, if you're Emmett or David, you immediately jump into action to protect your business, protect your cash flow, keep your employees engaged. You do the things it takes to keep your business running. Your clinical education is now, it's on a shelf for a while. So that's immediately what they did. They just think differently. The problem we have is you have two sides of a brain, and we're going to talk about here in a second how to train the side you don't use much. But dentists have, as a practice owner or an owner dentist, you have to be using both sides of your brain, both mindsets. The second thing is called your reticular activating system, or RAS. We're going to call it RAS. And this is an amazing new study in the brain. And if you want to have some fun one day, go onto YouTube and just search reticular activating system. And there are tons of examples of how this works. But fundamentally, it's a piece of your brain. It's this little thing here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but it's this little bitty thing at the bottom that's been there from the beginning. It was one of the first pieces. It basically is part of our brain that filters all of our senses except for smell. And they're not really sure why smell doesn't factor into it. And it delivers data to our consciousness. And that's what's very important. I'm going to explain how that works. It's responsible for how we sleep, cardio functions, fight or flight, habituation. One of the things that it will do, one of the things that it delivers is information about, here you go, filters out billions of unnecessary data and presents it to you without you even knowing. So as far as sleep, what it will do is you first get married and you're sleeping next to somebody and they snore. And I went through this with my wife. Oh, it's terrible. Now, I don't believe I snore. I've literally never heard myself snore. So, she could be making it up, but I trust her, believe her. She says I snore. She couldn't sleep. Now, I don't snore any different, maybe worse, but she sleeps completely fine. She doesn't even notice it. Her reticular activating system has filtered out all this information and said, that noise you hear next to you is safe. That's okay. It literally doesn't enter your consciousness. There is another part of this that is about babies. If you have ever had a new baby and you're laying there sound asleep and the baby coughs, you will immediately wake up. Your reticular activating system, your RAS, says that's not normal. Something could be wrong. Wake up now. Now, when we were many years ago, it could be the sound of a bear, coming into our cave, or a tiger, saber-toothed tiger around the outside of our hut. and it woke us up. It said, there's a threat, wake up now, do something about it. It only shows you what you have told it is important. You don't know you've told it this is important. Whether it's a threat or something important, that's all that gets through. So here's an example. You are, wherever you're sitting right now, looking at this, there are thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of things going on around you right now, and you hear my voice. But think about what's going on and how your left forearm feels right now. Suddenly you're aware of it. Your reticular activating system said, maybe it's warm, maybe it's scratchy, maybe it's whatever, but you've drawn attention to it. Now it's going to forget that immediately. But if it's important enough over time, it won't. It will start delivering it up. It probably takes 30 days of listening to me snore before Paula could sleep fine and not be bothered. Think about when you buy a car or you're shopping for a car and you drive down the road and suddenly you see them everywhere. You're going to buy, you're thinking about buying a Jeep, and suddenly you're driving down the highway and you see Jeeps everywhere. That is that's your RAS saying Jeeps are important to you right now. So I'm going to filter out 1 billion pieces of information driving down the highway, and I'm going to focus on that Jeep and that Jeep and that Jeep and that Jeep and deliver it to your conscious. Have you ever been in a room with people, like at a party, and there's 100 people in the room and they're all talking, and there's that noise that comes with parties that you can't filter out, and suddenly somebody says your name and you hear it? That's your reticular activating system. It also looks for information that reinforces what you already believe. And that's one of the things I want to correct here in just a minute. That if you believe certain things about your patients and your practice and the practice of dentistry, your reticular activating system will only deliver things that reinforce that. And you'll find terrible things about DSOs. And it will literally filter out good things about DSOs. Where you might say, gee, you can't build a $2 billion company providing terrible service to your customers. Maybe they're onto something. Your brain will impact your emotions, and you will literally not hear it, think it, you'll rule it out. It's also the driver behind optimism and pessimism. If your RAS is, you've conditioned it to typically see good things in the world, it will see only positivism and optimism. If you're kind of if you're grumpy and negative and you're sure the world's a crappy place and today's going to turn out to be a crappy day, it will be. This is what drives it. So Henry Ford used to say, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's literally what this is. It's how you choose to decide what's important. So how does that impact you? How's the RAS impact your mindset? As a dentist, your dentist mindset says, oh my gosh, I see 3D printers everywhere. Should I buy one? Should I do this type of margin? Am I the only one without a digital impression one? Every Facebook post I see in every group, that's all they're talking about. Blah, blah, blah. Lasers are so cool. All this stuff, that's all you see because dental school and your practice and your experience has trained you to see the clinical stuff, the stuff you're comfortable with and and it just reinforces that's how you run a good practice. Your dental mindset says all of that, and yeah, my business manager must be doing okay running the practice. So I think I am going to take that implant course. Meanwhile, Dave Schellenberger says, I need to give our clinical team a bonus for earning us 2,415 five-star patient reviews. And then between him and his management team, they think about ROI. They think about his earnings enough. They think about, now the details that go into this can be 1,000 things. Increasing your profitability can be buying supplies better. It can be understanding you might have too much staff. It could be negotiating a better lease. It could be negotiating out of PPOs. It could be all kinds of things, but you're seeing those every day. So when you see an article when you see an article on your left brain that says, man, these digital impression ones are really neat. You should put together 50 grand and buy one. Or, gee, my PPOs are costing me 10% more than my HMOs or my fee-for-service patients. That could be $100,000 or $200,000. So that's $100,000 or $2,100 coming in, or $50,000 going out. That's how this system works with them. They do not think about the dentistry. They have clinical teams, they have clinical managers, they have who should be your associates getting together, deciding how a particular treatment is done, voting on it, and rolling it out to every office. Now, no matter which office you go to, they use the same materials, the same treatment. If you move across town, the dentist changes, but you get the same support. When they have to inventory supplies, they inventory the same supplies for everybody. Not only that, but they negotiate with the suppliers and pay about 25 to 50% less than you do, because they're focusing on the operation and you're focusing on the clinical piece of it. Again, they still have to make their patients happy, or they don't have customers, so they're not doing shoddy dental work. After 4+ years of dental school, your mind is tilted to your dentist. I'm trying to do this right on the screen. Your mind is tilted to your dentist mindset naturally. You can't help it. It's what you see every day. It's what's been important. It's what was drilled into you in dental school. Their mind literally doesn't think of the dentistry except when they are in a monthly clinical meeting. And they don't even think of getting down deep into the clinical part of it. They count on their experts to do that. And they pay them really well because they deliver, and they pay them even better because they deliver financial results. That means they can hire more dentists and more staff. And believe me, when solo practitioners go out of business, it's not personal. They are just building their business. They would love to have great dentists working for them, but they're going to have to take care of the clinical part. Your mind is literally the opposite. So what we're going to talk about is, because you are an owner and a dentist, you have to find this balance that they don't have to find. Their disadvantage is they pay somebody to worry about the dentistry, and they make those decisions based on the results they deliver. They just get to work on running the business. It's why a 30-year-old Henry Schein rep can build a practice that many people on this meeting would love to have, and have worked 40 years to build, and are still stuck trying to find a new associate who works for a DSO. So the good news is you can train your RAS, your reticular activating system. And I'm going to give you 5 reasons right now, so get your notepad out, or 5 ways to train your RAS. Number 1 is choose goals that are important and relevant to you and write them down. Make them SMART goals. And this is for your owner mindset. This isn't your practitioner mindset. We're going to talk about your dental mindset and what you do with it here in a minute. The reason you write SMART goals is a SMART goal is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that here in just a second. But this is what a SMART goal, S-M-A-R-T, is literally what everybody who went through business school is going to write. They're going to create it. It has specifics, it's measurable, you can achieve it, it's realistic, and it's time bound. What that means is I'm going to do X by the end of the first quarter. I'm going to, this is something that's achievable. And what I mean by that is, say I am looking for a pilot's license, and we'll talk about a vision board here in a minute. I'm working on a pilot's license, and I want a Gulfstream 6 G6 jet. They're about $65 million. Can I achieve one? Can I? Yes. Can I do it in a time frame? Yes. It's going to take me about 252 years. I did the math. The problem is I can't live that long. So that is not an achievable goal. Double our production is not an achievable goal. Be a better dentist is certainly not specific. How do you be a better dentist? Those are things that you can train yourself over time to do. The reason you write it down is you are 3 times more likely to remember it if you write it down. If all you do is write it down and toss it away, that's fine. Write it out, watch yourself writing it out. Your RAS will remember you writing it out. It's a visual reminder of what's important to you, because you wouldn't have written it down if it wasn't important. And a lot of this sounds silly and like hoodoo. I promise you it works. It is scientifically proven. Number 2, keep your owner goals at the top of your mind. Talk about your goals with somebody every day, somebody that you care about, your spouse, your business partner, your accountant, your golfing buddy, whoever, but talk about them. If your goal is to increase your production to $5,000 a day, then talk about that you did that or don't. Talk to dentist friends. Go to lunch with a colleague. Go to study clubs and say, hey, here's what I'm trying to start a 401k for my employees this year. I want to have it done by December 31st. And you're going to be surprised that somebody says, oh my gosh, I just did that 2 years ago. Let me put you in touch with this person that did it, and it's fantastic. That's not magic. That's not the law of attraction. It is technically. It's not the universe speaking to you. It's you having this top of mind, sharing it, and suddenly somebody that you would have talked about golf with says, yeah, we just did that 2 years ago. Create a vision board. Now, again, this sounds hokey. A vision board can be something that you create digitally. My vision board is literally, I printed out, I put pictures and wrote on an 8.5 11 by 11 piece of paper. It's a regular old piece of paper. I put it in a frame and I hung it in my closet. So I see it every morning when I get dressed. I've completely forgotten about it until I started integrating this into my talks. And I went in and I pulled it down, and it's probably been in there 3 years, 4 years. And 9 out of 10 things on it, I've already done in the last 3 to 5 years. They're more personal goals, but 9 out of 10 of them I did. And I suddenly wondered how much of that accomplishment was just me looking at it every day. One of the interesting things is I put a car on there almost 5 years ago, particular car that had just been introduced, and it's blue. And I just put a picture of it on this vision board. And I told DePaul, and I said, will you look at this? What is on here? And she said, it's a blue, it's a Panamera, blue Porsche Panamera. And I said, where else is there a blue Porsche Panamera? There's one in our garage. It's subconscious. I see it every day. If you ask me what was on it, I may not even be able to tell you, but my RAS is telling me every day that I go past it. There's another vision board tool I'm going to share with you, and this is a hack. Somebody taught me this. You have a tool that you carry with you every day. Now, I might have lied to you if you don't have a cell phone. I told you you wouldn't need to buy anything. But if you don't have a cell phone, then yes, you got to buy something. You got to have a cell phone. One of the things you have on your in your arsenal is your cell phone. So I did this this morning, and I know it's hard to. It might be behind the logos, but I'll show it. I'll put it up here. I wrote down on an envelope 3 practice goals, and I don't know if you can see those. It's hard to see on the way our system works, but it's a cell phone, and I wrote on an envelope, produce $5,000 every day, number 1. Number 2, drop all PPOs by December 31st of this year. And number 3, start a 401k for my team and me by 12/31 of this year. So what happens is every time you pick your phone up, you see the picture of that envelope. Now, here's the interesting thing. The reason this came to me is on average, and I was shocked by this, but maybe not, because I bring the average down, my 5 kids bring the average up. On average, we look at our cell phone 110 times a day. So I see those 3 messages 110 times a day. the same as I see the vision board, the 8.5 by 11 framed piece of copy paper in my closet every day, whether I think about it or not. What I'm doing is training my reticular activating system that those things are important to me over and over and over, even if they're not. Even if I don't do it specifically. Number 3, take consistent action on your owner goals and mindset every day. Read an article, watch a YouTube, listen to a podcast on a business topic you find challenging. If you don't understand what EBITDA is, I promise you the bank that's going to loan the money to the person that wants to buy your practice, it's the only measure that they're going to look at. They don't care that you have happy patients. They don't care that you have 2,052 hours in implants. They care what your EBITDA is, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It is the key measure of your business's success. Not you as a dentist, but your business's success. Excuse me. Write down your production goal every day. Just get a little marker board that you already have in your office. Take a bulletin board, take a piece of paper and stick it on there and write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Write a column that says goals and a column that says what we did. And you go out and write your production goal for the day and what you produce that day, every day. So here's another interesting thing. Not only is your reticular activating system delivering what it thinks is important, but your team's is too. So if Dr. Jones is going out every day and writing the production goal, because we need $5,000 a day in 192 days to be $1 million practice, he looks at it on his phone all the time. We look at it in the lab or wherever we meet and have our huddle every day. It's suddenly important to everybody there. They don't know why it's important. They don't even think about how it's important, but they know that somebody's talking about it every day and it's you and you're the owner. Look over your daily performance every day. Do an end-of-day report with your manager. No matter what you do, don't be overwhelmed. Just, I used to, one of the first practices that I bought, I would call and say, how did we do today? And they would say, oh man, we were busy. We were covered up. We were slammed. I would say busy is not a number. It takes $5,000 a day on average for the days we've chosen to work to be profitable, pay your pay the landlord, pay the electric company, pay the supply bills, pay the lab. It takes that every day on average. So if we make $4,900 today, we got to make $5,100 tomorrow. We're all focused on that same thing. You look at it every day and don't accept busy as how you did today, except we produced $5,700. I promise you within 30 days, that 57 is going to go to 62 and 62 is going to go to 64. And you're going to watch that go up simply by paying attention to it. Train your RAS to recognize your owner goals. At the end of every day, think about those little actions you took. I wrote on the I wrote the production number in the lab. I read an article about EBITDA from somebody in dentistry. Any little thing that you did towards the owner side of the equation, just write it down. It can be on a scrap piece of paper. It can be on a notepad that you just keep every day. It could be in a journal. There are gold journals that you can, if you want to spend money, you can go spend $10 and get a gold journal off of Amazon and literally write it down every day and keep going back and visiting. What matters is you recognize it at the end of the day and you think back on those things you did. Again, you're training your reticular activating system that this is important. Here's a way it's important. I'm not only remembering it, I'm not only looking at it when I'm getting dressed in the morning, not only looking at it every time I see my phone, now I'm writing it down at the end of every day. After a while, it becomes important. Create positive affirmation for your owner goals. There's a lot of, people make a lot of fun about, positive affirmation, I'm important and I'm strong. And here's the thing, it works. Now, it doesn't have to be silly, but it does have to be focused on 3 things. One is say it out loud. I will do $5,000 today. Create very specific goals. I will do $5,000 production today. Number 3, ensure that they are, your affirmations are in the positive. I will produce $5,000 today. So say it on the way to work in the car. Say it when you get out of the car, getting ready to go into the office. Say it in the office. But whatever you do, say it in the positive. Make it positive, make it specific, and make it out loud. Say it out loud. It's the same as writing. It helps reinforce it. Here's a bonus as we get near the end. Along with those 5 things, one of the things I want you to do to train your practice owner mindset, your owner dentist mindset, is to get past the idea that you can't give good patient care and be profitable. They are 2 sides of the same coin. The problem is you're too heavily weighted to one side of the coin and not the other. You're heavily weighted to the right side of the coin to be a good dentist, the wrong side of the coin to be a good practice owner. And as I said, these non-dentist owners, they don't have to worry about the other side. The measure of your skills as a practice owner, or as a dentist, are number 1, your diploma. And as Dr. Emily will tell you, when I do a thing when we're when we're live, and I'll say, everybody who's got a diploma from their dental school, raise their hand. Of course, everybody raises their hand. Everybody who's got a license to practice dentistry in their state, raise your hand, and everybody raise their hand. You're done. You are a good dentist. You're a good enough dentist according to your dental school, university, and the state that you practice in. You can dig deeper and invest more time every day in that, or you can invest time in the reason that you might be watching this, which is you struggle with the practice junk every day. You're struggling with payroll right now. Your credit cards are getting full. All the things, you go home stressed every day because you just lost your office manager. Focus on those things until you're comfortable with that. The measure of your business, is profit is a measure simply of the health and efficiency of your business. And it must be nurtured every day, week, month, and year and career. It is the thing you cannot forget every day. You can get around to that implant course, but if you're struggling with paying bills, you better understand what EBITDA is. You better understand how PPOs are dragging you down. You better understand how insurance negotiation is killing you. Those are the things that I want you to do every day. And I've just given you 5 tools and 1 mindset to do it. I believe, and I'd say this at the beginning and the end of, because we champion owner dentists, I believe it's incumbent upon today's owner dentist to demonstrate by example how a practice ownership can be more financially rewarding, deliver a more gratifying career, and than being an employee for a DSO or a small group. It is possible, but you have got to change your business ownership mindset to make it profitable and comfortable. And then the associate who comes to look at you says, yeah, I want to take this over. I want to buy this. And the bank says, we've had 3 years of increasing EBITDA. We'll loan you the money that this doctor wants. And you can take that $1.5 million or $2 million and buy an RV and drive off into the sunset. But until you focus on that side of your brain and make it as important as the left side, it's just going to be a challenge. So told Dr. Emily we probably went over a little bit, but we will stop sharing and take questions if we have them.
Well, that was awesome, Steve. I'm so glad that you were sharing all of those. And it's just like a lot of times what we say, it's people would tell us it's common sense. Yes, but it's not common practice. You should be doing that, but you don't. So I got a few difficult questions for you.
Okay.
So one of the things you say is to share what you want, right? To share your goals, to share
Yes.
your numbers with your team. A lot of time when I'm talking to our colleagues, I'm coaching my clients, people would talk about, well, but I don't want my team to know what my net is, right? I don't want them to know that, because how the team
Yeah.
thinks, oh, we collected 100 this month, we must be doing really good. What they didn't
Right.
know is there was a $20,000 go to real estate loan and $10,000
Right.
go to practice loan and all that. And it's funny because when I first started, uh, I told my team everything. I need this
Mhm.
much to pay my loan. I need this much to pay myself, and we were all on the same page, but I was a little surprised when I'm sharing that with other people that they don't want to share that. So how would you say how to overcome that? Because people
That is
people don't
a
want to share, right?
well, that is a fantastic question, and it's math, which falls right into left brain category. So, excuse me. Here's what I would do. Here's what I do. I would pick one metric. In my case, it would be production number. That's it. That's the number I'm sharing. However, the number that I share takes some things into consideration. It takes into consideration the average percent I'm writing off for insurance. So if I
Okay.
want to if I need $5,000 a day, if I need to net $5,000 a day, we'll
Right,
say,
right,
let's
right,
do it that
right,
way.
right.
If I need to net $5,000 a day and I'm writing off 25% to insurance, I need to produce $7,500.
Right.
Now, if you know, and here's a news flash. I don't know if anybody's learned this, but Delta Dental is never going to raise their reimbursements to you. Never. So next
Uh-huh.
year, that 25% might be 30%. So now I need $8,000 a day just to break even on this production. Or I can spend the next in the background. I need my $7,500 a day in production. But back to my 3 goals on my phone, one of them is to get out of the PPOs by the end of the year. You can't do it tomorrow, but you can do it over the next 11 months. So every time I get out of a PPO that reimburses me 45% or 55%, or I'm writing off nearly half of my production, I drop that one, my average goes up. Now I don't really need
Right.
7,500. I might need 7,200, but we're sticking with 75 every day.
Right, right.
75 is the magic number we're drilling in their head, and we're managing on the back end. We're managing our net on the back end. So our net starts going up, but we haven't changed our goal. We haven't changed the
Right.
7,500. We just started making more profit, the healthy measure of the business. We never should have been in those PPOs in the first place.
Right.
We might lose, I don't know, 20 patients. My experience, I'll be honest with you, and we work with several people who are masters at exercising PPOs from your practice, is you're going to retain 80 to 90% of your patients if you distance yourself from PPOs correctly. You can't just write a letter and say,
Right.
hey, we don't take your insurance anymore. If you do
Mhm.
it correctly, you'll keep 80 to 90% of your patients. They're just now paying your fee. So you just started increasing your production and revenue from the exact same patients. You didn't have to find any new patients. So I would pick one number that results in the net you need. Now, $5,000, as you said, if I produced 100 this month and my overhead is 110, we didn't do very well. So the trick is to make sure that the number you produce or the number you make important every day is a number that I always say pays everybody today, and then most importantly, pays your future self. So pay
Yeah.
you in the future. Visualize yourself 32 years from now when you turn 60 and want to retire, and start putting money towards that person every day. Your staff doesn't need to know that. In fact, one of my items on my little make-believe list here was start a 401k for my team and me. They're thrilled to build a 401k. They're thrilled to have it. It keeps them sticky and retained. And it
Right.
also puts more money. They understand that if they're producing 7,500, it's funding the 401k. Well,
Right.
or a simple IRA, or, I'm not an
Right. Right.
accountant, but talk to
Right.
one.
Right.
But
Yes.
they will tell you that number one, it's deductible. And number two, you're the biggest beneficiary as a practice owner. You are
Yes.
putting together, could be millions of dollars, whether you sell your practice or not,
Mm-hmm.
every day now for the next 31 years. So I would stick with one metric that's important. Now, I might have another metric with my business manager or my office manager, and that is to get us out of PPOs by the end of 12/31. It might be reduce our supply costs by 10%. It might be any number of things, but that's only important to that one person because he or she
Okay.
can impact that. Your
Right. And
team
that's
as a whole can impact one thing, production.
right. And I'm glad you said that because when I was younger, I wanted to make sure I'm treating everybody equally, right? Right. When it
Well,
comes to with the bonus, everybody get the same bonus. And then as I'm going through some of these business training, I'm thinking, wait a minute, but not everybody's doing the exact same thing, right?
Emily,
So
sometimes you learn what not to do. That's the value of that
yeah,
course.
exactly. I come back and I go, wait a minute, you know, and
Well,
and
and I'll interject here. One of the things
yeah,
that is important as a business owner to understand, and you can think back in your own life. I've had a lot of employees, and while we're together, we're fantastic, and I love them all. But once you reach this point where it's not working for one of you or the other, and they're employees, so keep this in mind. If your practice crashes and burns and you lose everything, tomorrow they go get another job doing the same thing at another dentist.
right,
In fact, if they think you were doing well, they might get a $2 an hour raise. They come out better. And that can be very hurtful to a lot of practice owners when that happens and somebody leaves them for $1 or $2 an hour and you realize, man, I've given you everything. And to me, you're just a job. I got news for you. If you want to know who's going to stick with you through thick or thin, miss a couple payrolls. You might miss
right,
a couple
exactly,
payrolls
right,
because you don't have enough to pay you, but I promise you, your staff, unless they're related to you,
all
they are not going to stick around when they have to miss a payroll or two. They're going to tell you how much they love you. They're going to tell you how devoted they are, and they are.
yes,
And they're not
yes.
lying to you, but they have a life that relies on that income, and so do you. They're not going down on the ship with you. In fact, they're going to start looking. So
You're right.
I think if you back into the right production number, make that important every day. You see it, you write it, you talk about it, everything you do about it, then that number will start to materialize. It'll start to become real. And then you focus on making it bigger. But just back into your net. I wouldn't share my net either. They don't need to know what
I mean, not the net. I mean, but there's certain numbers. Like if you ask them to do X dollar, you want to justify why X dollars. You know, at least to a certain
right.
extent, because otherwise they think you're taking all that money home, and you're buying a new car or something like that.
Bad news
And
is they do
but
anyway. Yeah,
right,
they do
exactly,
anyway.
right. And it's great that you share that because I think for some of us who've been around for a while, right, we recognize that. Like you said,
Yeah,
miss a couple of payroll, come in late on payroll date or whatever it is, and everybody start asking for you because we're gonna get paid today, right? Like those kind of
right,
questions.
right.
It's always over an employee's mindset, right? That's all
Well,
they. That's what they care about. But
yeah,
for the
they have
young
to.
for yeah, but for the younger doctors, sometimes they don't know that because they've never experienced that. I mean, I
Right.
have chat with younger doctors and oh, I love my staff to death and this and I'm going to do this and that for my staff. And I think one of the very early advice that I had, it might have been from the doctor who sold me the practice back in 1997, my first practice. He says, keep your staff at arm's length.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
yeah, close enough, but don't be their buddies, right? And
I
when
promise
you
you,
first,
the non-dentists do that.
right,
They're a great boss. That's a great employee, and as long as that relationship is working, don't think that making it personal won't screw it up. And it doesn't
right,
mean you're aloof or you're nasty or you bark orders. It just means that there's a boundary between I mean, you can know their kids' names and you can know those things, but once you start, once everybody goes, you go on vacation with them, or you go on this trip to somewhere with them, or you start going out to dinner, you really broken that. And I
it
promise you,
blurs the line. Yeah, it
yes,
blurs up the
yeah,
line, and yeah, and I learned that the hard way. But anyway, the other thing I wanna say is, you were talking about take consistent action on the
hmm
goal, and it
hmm
could be watch a video, listen to a podcast, reading a magazine. And we've had this chat a couple of times where people are just distracted with
Yes.
other stuff. They get online and they start getting into these Facebook groups and chat about things. And, I do the same thing, but I have my own specific reason why I'm in the
Right.
group. So what would you say is the best, like, what would be from a non-dentist, quote unquote, right,
Mm-hmm.
mindset, if you were to advise somebody to focus on three things, right? Like if they're going to look
Right.
for a podcast, which kind of podcast? If they were going to look, I mean, obviously everybody should be reading the Profitable Dentist magazine. So
And
we don't need to have that discussion, right?
yes.
But um, what would you recommend? Like if somebody, let's just say somebody is in their 30s, right? So they've been around for a
Mm-hmm.
while. They might have their first practice, or they may be looking for first practice. What would you say they should devote their time to learn on their own?
And that's a great question, and it's very hard. So there's two things to unpack here. One is Facebook. Um, there is a whole body of science right now around, how can I say this? Facebook is an artificial reticular activating system, and most
Okay.
people don't know how it works. Have you ever noticed when you search for something on, you watch a YouTube over here, you watch a YouTube video, and then suddenly you're on Facebook and there's something else about it or
Right,
something
right, of
similar.
course.
And then,
Yes,
so basically that's your RAS. It is your brain feeds you what you're likely to want to read. So you'll go on to, you'll look at something where there's 1,000 pieces of information. You'll see the word implants. I'll see the
right.
word, Porsche
Blue
or
car.
airplane. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll see blue car. I'll see a blue Panamera.
yeah.
So first thing is awareness. Be very aware that this exists and it's real. Facebook is an artificial RAS because it is literally only delivering to you on a device, on a small phone or on a
Right,
screen, things that you've shown an interest in by your behavior on Facebook. So not only is your brain filtering out those things, but Facebook's filtering out those things. So you get into what's called an echo chamber, where it's just reinforcing, I don't know, in the dentist world, digital impression wands are everywhere. Everybody's
right,
better at
right, right,
implants
right.
than me.
Yes,
Oh my
yes,
gosh, look
yes.
at these, look at this case. And keep in mind, all we dentists tend to compare themselves with each other. So my first piece of advice is stop that. People, you only know about people what they share with you and what they tell you,
Exactly.
and or what somebody else says about them. Oh, that guy's great, or that guy's an idiot. You know everything about you. You know that root canal that went sideways on you, and you're still losing sleep over it. That you're struggling your credit card bills are getting up, and you can't pay payroll 2 weeks from now, and you don't know how to do it. You got to borrow money from somebody. You know all the bad junk about you, but you're looking at all the good junk about other people. So number one, know that there's a filter for that. Don't compare yourself. The number one question I would get dentists when I was, deep into consulting, who would say, and I'll tell you one quick little story. There was a guy on the corner who spent close to $1 million on a build out. He had all the best technology. It was fantastic. It was a glittering palace of dentistry. And so he calls me one day and he says, "Hey, I want to know, can you go to lunch?" And I always know why when somebody wants me to go to lunch. He said, "I'm struggling. I can't do this. My mom's had to come in and run the front desk, and my wife is my assistant. And I am so far. I'm 6 months behind on my practice loan." And I said, "Well, let me look under the hood and we'll see what we can fix." The next day, a good friend of mine down the street called and said, "Hey, can we go to lunch?" And I said, "Sure." So we went out to lunch. And his first question was, "Man, what is that guy doing? He's just got, his practice is amazing. How do I get," I'm thinking of,
Doing the same
so-and-so's
thing.
come in and, "Oh yeah, they've talked to me about a build out and it's going to cost me $800,000. But if I only had this fancy chairside milling machine and I only had this CAD cam junk in here, he's got all that stuff." Stop comparing yourself,
Right.
because it may be that he's about to go out of business. Now, it won't stop him from sharing on Facebook. So number one, stop that piece. Number two is intentionally, with intention, and it's going to take training. When you find yourself chasing the shiny implant object, because you
right,
love thinking implants,
right.
after a while, it'll become second nature, and you'll say, here I go down the rabbit hole, click and stop. And you can actually create filters, and this is a little more technical than I can. If you can't help yourself, you can create filters in your browsers and in your anymore that will filter out certain things. I'm not saying don't say, wow, that's a really cool procedure, because you went to dental school for 4 years, for crying out loud. You do it every day. It's neat. I'm saying be aware of the fact that you just took 30 minutes and you spent 29 of them on your dentist mindset. And now you got to do something real quick on your practice owner mindset to knock that off the list. Don't knock it off the list. It's important. Just start being conscious of that time. And I think that's where writing it down at the end of the day will help you, because the first few days, you're not going to have anything to write down. And you're going to say, okay, quit screwing around, pay attention. And it's just habituation. Now, the good news is your RAS, your reticular activating system, it literally drives your habituation. It drives your habits. It ingrains your habits. So as you visualize it, as you do tiny little actions, as you start finding things there, you're never gonna, I promise you, there is not a dentist, well, 99.99% of dentists on here are never gonna fall in love with accounting, but they need to know how it works. They're never gonna fall in love with finance, which means practice valuation, but they need to know how it works. So you don't need an MBA, but you need to know enough so that the person you hire is doing it well. That makes sense?
Right. Yes, absolutely. And as you're talking, I was thinking about the DBA program that we're launching.
Yes.
And we purposely set it up to be 6 hours a week, which is like an hour a day, which is probably the time people are scrolling on Facebook.
Right.
So instead of them scrolling on Facebook, they should just pay attention to this stuff. Successful business owners and business gurus, people like yourself, who would be sharing the stuff under the hood, right? I like that under the hood.
It's where the engine is. The engine that runs your practice is under the hood. So there are a lot of good things on Facebook and a lot of not so good things on Facebook.
Right.
I'm a big fan of Facebook groups, the right ones. I'm a big fan of some of them that are fun, but I know I'm having fun. I know I'm just goofing around on there with, our buddy, with Maudie. But I'm conscious of that, and then I get back to work. So it's hard to manage that. There is an echo chamber, and there's a rabbit hole you go down, and 3 hours later, you haven't seen any patients, but you know everything about, how the Egyptian pyramids got built or whatever, that you'll never use again. And suddenly you want to take a trip to Egypt, but you can't make payroll. And, you're telling your brain what's important. And it's a habit is all it really is. Just start forming good habits.
Yes. Well, Steve, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for spending the time on here. I recommend everybody to go to tpdmag.com. And I already shared that link on my personal page. And follow Steve and subscribe to the magazine, because he got the greatest thinkers on there. He gives you the insights, and honestly, for me, we need people like you who are outside the industry, because you have a different way to look at things. A lot of us, the one and only Dr. Howard Farran, or the unique Dr. Steve Mautner, there are not too many of us out there who are like that, right? So we need to see it from all the different sides. Last advice for all of us on here.
I would say the number one piece of advice I always give is focus on the results. That's all. Make your decisions on results. So if you make a change, know what you expect to come out of that change. If it's a little more production, if it's a little lower cost, anything that improves your profitability, know what you expect. I expect $2,000 more dollars a month out of this change. Measure that and watch those results. there's an adage in business, you can only manage what you measure. So measure it, know what you expect, and make that change. And that's hard to do as a dentist mindset. You want to be a good dentist, you want happy patients. Measure happy patients, there are more 5-star reviews. But find a way to measure that thing instead of, because we could all have a differing opinion and we could all be right. And I could say, yeah, my patients love me. And somebody else says, oh, our patients hate us. And, you know, they've processed it through their own reticular activating system. And every time they hear a grumpy patient, they say, see, they all hate us. Well, they don't all hate you. You know,
Right.
one knucklehead hates you. And, you know, you can never make anybody happy. And I'm not saying
Right.
it's not important. I'm just saying, don't let your day get beat up because of that review, which is the result you're after. So
Right.
just focus on a result, know what you want to accomplish measurably, and then either if it works, do more of it. If it didn't work, stop doing it.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Steve. And I will see you soon on our interview. And Dr. Keanu Shah just messaged me. He asked you to come by to Clearwater next weekend if you have time and hang out with us, because we have a little workshop going on there. So
I
again,
might
thank
just
you.
do that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much, Steve. And thank you to all of our doctors and our friends across the world who joined us this morning. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. And next week, start measuring results. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.